Hello and welcome to Jazini Insights. I talk about the government. I talk about what we expect of them. I am passionate about a Nigeria that would work because we know that if Nigeria works, Africa will work. Here at Jazini Insights, we are particular about holding government accountable, about enlightenment and education, about awakening the political consciousness of our people, about active citizenship and advocacy, call to action, governance in general. Today, I want to talk about the politics of structure.
And let me assure all of you, not while we live, not while we live, anybody will take away the structure of PDP from us. Not while we live. And let me tell people, I hear that there are some governors, there are some governors who say they will take away the structure and give back to somebody. I pity those governors.
When you hear things like, I made him president, I made him governor, without me, he couldn't have been in the Senate. No man born of a woman can bring me down. When you hear things like, I have the capacity, when you hear things like, not when we are alive will anyone take away the structure of PDP. When you hear things like, he's an ungrateful person, when you hear things like, he betrayed me, what do they really mean? I'm sure by the end of this video, you will find out what they mean. It boils down to what I am talking about, the structure. The politics of structure has destroyed Nigeria. Structure is the reason a local government chairman is at loggerhead with ward chairman. Is the reason a governor and his deputy are sworn enemies. Is the reason senators and governors are in a superiority tussle or even cold war. Structure is the reason a woman leader and a youth leader don't see eyeball to eyeball. Structure is the reason political parties in different localities and strata in Nigeria are cats and dog, or cat and mouse as you choose. This politics of structure is why the federal government will ignore a state to teach them a lesson. And those states that don't want to be ignored abandon their people to seek the blessing of the fathers in Abuja. But these things are not so from the places we copied the so-called democracy. And that is why they woo their people during elections and beg for votes. That is why they are very meticulous, particular about putting those who are qualified for the job. Unlike what happens in our country where they tell you to hell with you. Whether or not you like it, I will be the governor, I will be the president, or so person will be the governor or the president, or whichever strata of power that's involved. When people who lack pedigree find themselves in the corridors of power, when they know that ordinarily they have no business being in power and may not be allowed to continue with the eyes of the people open, they rely on these structures. Now, what's the structure? The so-called structure is a group of strong men, not strong institutions, coupled with gullible fellows, sycophants, praise singers, OES members, and handout recipients who feel obliged to the few deceitful, self-acclaimed strong men, big heads, godfathers, like we call it in Nigeria politics. Someone is going to ask me if anything is wrong with the politics of structure, but I would say that it should have been the structure of politics as practiced in those places where we copied the democracy. What's the difference? The structure of politics simply means the organogram of governance as put by conventional democracies, where you have things like the legislature, executives, the judiciary, and every other organization groups that make up these three arms of government that I have mentioned. But in Nigeria, these arms of government have been relegated, that they are no longer useful in their original forms. It is who has the powers to muzzle his way through and get a few people who can also play dirty games to support him. Now, it will interest you to know that most of the states where this politics of structure holds sway have never grown an inch from what they were since we got our democracy. Let's have a little example. Kogi State, Rivers State, Edo State, Lagos State, and not too long ago, Abia State. Just a select few. It is almost in all our 36 states. In the examples I've picked, in the next few hours, Edo State will be heading to to an election is like a do or die, because these godfathers, which is synonymous to structure, are bent on putting their own persons, government by proxies. And believe me, people in government, even those who have been in the highest echelons of our government, have made it clear that there's never been a free and fair election in Nigeria, courtesy of the structures. How does it work? They select an anointed candidate, do the charade of an election, then take advantage of every loophole in those elections to install the select few or the anointed candidates. Our democracy started since 1999. In 1999, PDP's Ibinedion was the governor up until 2007. Because he said to have run the state aground, they needed a messiah. Oshomole, in his unionism, give it to him, Oshomole tried as a union leader, as a labor leader. The people saw him as the messiah of the time, and he came into leadership as the governor of Edo State under the platform of the AC. He did well in his first tenure, relatively. I would say relatively, because what has happened to us is that we have been destroyed to that extent that when a new government comes in, it's either the previous one is rated highly because the new one is failing, or the new one is rated highly because the old one did extremely bad. So relatively, Oshomole tried to fix the people's problem in his first tenure. But like every other godfather and like every other states of the politics of structure, when they see money, when they sit on money, you hear it in statements they make when they say this governor is sitting on this amount of billions and trillions of naira. They make it look like it is his personal money. They make it look like he can always do anything with those monies, as if they are not assigned to governors, to issues of states, and to running the lives of the people. When they see these so-called huge monies, they rather die on seats than live. But you know, they are restrained by the rules, either of tenure, expiration, elongation, or as the case may be. So Oshomole, instead of leaving when the ovation was loud, he wanted to stay put, and he wanted to do that through the man he installed, who is now the present governor of Edo State and a sworn enemy. How did he get that bad? Thanks to the politics of structure. Remember my introduction. What happens is that they install people who they feel should be loyal to them. They want to rule by proxy through these people. And believe me, no leader would want to be a puppet. When they want to assert themselves in position, it becomes a problem. They become the ungrateful people because they are expected to fund, to some extent, the lavish life of their predecessors. They are expected to cover secrets of embezzlement, of mismanagement of public funds, of misbehavior, of manipulations of the rules of law, of a lot of anomalies for their predecessors. They are expected to sit on any form of probe against them when they lose immunity. They are expected to just play along. And it doesn't come easy. So they become ingrates, they become all the names we earlier mentioned. So Obaseke, replacing Oshomole, was not playing the tune of the piper, and he became a bad egg. Obaseke, in trying to save himself, quickly swung into PDP. All the PDP in their opposition then, and all the enemies of Oshomole, backed Obaseke, and Obaseke retained a second term in government. It's always their second terms that they hold them hostage. Having gotten what he wanted, he had to get back at his master. Remember, in this politics of structure, the sycophants and the people who line up as press singers are usually most of them in the House of Assembly. And Obaseke got back at Oshomole by removing all the people he was banking on, or at least many of the people he was banking on in the House of Assembly. Oshomole's dynasty would crumble and the enmity deepened. But you know what happens? Just struggle and find your way to the Senate or to Abuja. Oshomole in that struggle was able to quickly put in 2 senators, because every state is expected to produce 3 senators. So if the state is bringing you down, run to Abuja. The same time, Oshomole quickly switched to APC, or agreed to the merger that brought about APC, from where he was made the national chairman of APC. But Obaseke will go ahead and remove most of his men from the House of Assembly, destabilizing his grip on Edo State. But as a national chairman, there was more coming for Obaseke. The tussle continued. Obaseke still, when he is supposed to leave, tried installing his own person. It's usually the people from the finance sector. And remember, Oshomole tried to get 2 senators who would be his lieutenants as a general in the fight for supremacy. I had told you that it is the politics of structure that makes senators and governors locked up in this continuous Cold War. Let's also look at another example in Rivers State. In Rivers State, between the 1999 and 2007, it was Peter Odili who, when he was leaving, handpicked Umehia against the party primaries of PDP that produced Rotimi Amechi. And Rotimi Amechi wouldn't take it. He wasn't the anointed candidate. He took PDP to court. That also continued until he won the court, installed him as governor. He happened to break that history, to have that record as the only governor who was installed without being on the ballot, because the court ruled that the votes that Umehia inherited is for PDP as a party, and anybody that has been projected as the primaries candidate or produced by the primaries of PDP is supposed to have those votes. And that is how Rotimi Amechi became the governor of Rivers State. And you imagine the fights and the tussle for supremacy of structures continued. Rotimi Amechi stripped Umehia of every recognition and opportunity or privilege of any former governor. To get back to Rotimi, when Wike became the governor, he reinstated the position of Umehia as an ex-governor, such that he can receive pensions and everything he was supposed to get as an ex-governor, or that should accrue to an ex-governor. But you know, like every greedy godfather, they have expectations that their godsons might not meet. It wasn't long, Wike started screaming of betrayal, and once again, he used his might to strip Umehia of that opportunity or that title of an ex-governor, and the tussle will continue on and on until Wike left and installed Similaye Fubara. Meanwhile, when this tussle was happening, they would look to, it's usually between APC, PDP, the major parties we have in Nigeria. Rotimi Amechi would find his way to the next big heads, where the godfathers, the strong men, would grant him protection and fight that tussle with him. This is where we are. You know the story of Rivers State. Let me take you a little bit to Abia State before Alex Otti became their governor. It was Orjus Okalu between the 1999s and the 2000s when Eninea Abaribe was his deputy, who was impeached. Not long after his impeachment, another Chimawafo took over. That one in the godfather and the godson tussle had a dastardly end. It was a tragic loss on the way to Abuja. And not long after then, Theodore Orji would take over. And the tussle continued until Ipazo. I don't want to bore you, but I just want to take your mind a little bit back of how we have fed all this while in our journey to finding democracy and the Nigeria we want. And are you telling me that we have done well with this politics of structure? In the last elections, Peter Obi was told that it hadn't any structure, but the people spoke about what it should be other than structure. I don't want to bore you with the story of Lagos, which will be my last example, but in your own corner, use your state as an example. Use every other state that you know. You might even know the stories more than I know. How we have been locked in tussles of structure, in tussles of godfatherism, which I will see as synonymous to so-called structure. That the people never receive governance. The people are never bothered with governance. Rather, it is with taking sides and fighting the wars of the titans. In Lagos State, you know the story. Between the 1999s and the 2000s, it was Bola Ahmed Tinubu who installed Fashola in 2027. The same man installed Ambode in 2015, who never completed a second tenure because he wasn't playing and dancing to the tunes of the pipers or the payers of the piper. After him, it is Shomolu who has remained an errand boy. This chief structurist and godfather has skimmed his way gradually into the highest position in the land. The worst thing Nigeria ever did was to allow Tinubu become the president of this country. And there is nothing that is going to change. There is nothing that is going to change, because ever since Bola Ahmed Tinubu muzzled his way to the presidency, it has become very obvious that what will be important is for you to find your way by hook or crook, anyhow you want to do it. Just let INEC declare you, the courts will finish it for you. Our courts have become something else. Privatized individual courts, where it is whatever they say is the law, where they turn law upside down. Breaking news: in Edo State, they have carted away sensitive election materials. Hoodlums, so-called hoodlums, have carted away sensitive election materials. The template is playing back. Just find a way and be declared by INEC. By so doing, they will be able to go and do whatever they need to do to be declared by INEC. Then I ask, where are the thousands of military men, policemen, civil defense, and all paramilitary that have been deployed to Edo State? Where were they guarding before the so-called hoodlums carted away those materials? Edo State is heavily militarized, intimidation of real voters going on. And yet, they tell us, just like Mahmoud told Nigerians that there was technical glitch that has never been explained since the election of a whole country of 250 million people was marked by the so-called glitch. So with this chief rigger, chief godfather, chief structurist in government, the pattern will become the order of the day. The leader sin is a leading sin. At a time when we're having an election, at a time coinciding with the UNGA, the United Nations General Assembly meeting, Mr. Grabitz says he's not going to the US. Shetima is going to the US to represent Nigeria as he concentrates with governors back home. I think that's one of the best decisions he ever made, because all the ones he has been going, Nigeria has been in the mud, and he knows too well that he has things waiting for him to sort out in the US. That's by the way. We can never forget 2023 presidential election. How can we forget? We will never forget. Don't forget. That is the problem we have. That they know that Nigerians, immediately they succeed, will forgive them, will buy them excuses, will forget and pursue their daily living. After all, they are too hungry in a place where they have weaponized poverty that you will keep battling for things to feed on while they continue in their rigging. If you forget 2023 presidential elections, that structure put in place, your life will remain in shreds. Structural anomalies that brought in criminals in power, and your life knows no peace for it. How will you forget? How will you forget? It has gone down memory lane, history, that in 2023, structure, godfatherism, muzzling their way into power. The courts gave us mass suffering. The hoodlums that enter power and see no other thing other than the honey in power, they cannot see gold. We have a president who can see gold in Peter Obi. He sees money everywhere, in everything. He can turn them to money, other than the ones that cannot turn anything into gold, rather they dig. How do we overcome the politics of structure? Number one, we are going to insist that our government invests in electronic voting. Who would believe that in the year 2024, the biggest black nation is still battling with conducting basic elections? We must insist on electronic voting. We must insist that all the gains of the Electoral Act will be revived. That all the ways our courts and their judiciary have bastardized the Electoral Act will be reviewed. There should be a restoration from the above Nigeria. We are heading to the bricks. We are crashing. We are crashing. Meanwhile, as we wait for the implementation of electronic voting, you will never hesitate to have your PVC in your hands. Those of you who don't collect your PVCs, they are using it to rig our elections. Those of you who leave your PVCs uncollected, where do you think the people they see with many PVCs get them from? They are going to use it anyway. If you are an IT guru, this is the time to hold them accountable through the keyboards. Check out every form of glitch in any election. You have the power as a young Nigerian. They don't know as much as you know in an information era. Use your power, use your knowledge. Fight for a Nigeria where we will have real-time elections that will be seen trickling in and counted same day. We will not continue like this. We have to move away from this state where they cut away ballot boxes, where they shoot at voters on the days of election and disperse everybody and do what they want to do. Where on the road to collation, election results are altered. Where in the collation centers, agents are not allowed entry. Where in the collation centers, agents are intimidated. Where in the collation centers, returning officers are pressed against their wishes, intimidated, threatened, and sometimes killed or burnt alive. We have to move away. We have to see why we need to stop this nonsense in the name of voting. The charade that has to be conducted for them to install all the people that they have handpicked in their so-called structure. We cannot continue like this. 2027, something has to happen. Something must have to give. Something must happen. The people have to speak. If you are giving up because of what happened in 2023, you are a coward. You never had a good fight. It is never over until it is over. You will keep fighting until you see the results. Have you ever started anything that you think is important and on the way you back out? You back down because you feel there's lion on the way. We must push. I might not say it all, but we must bring down the politics of structure in Nigeria. We must bring down the politics of structure in Nigeria. Look at Abia State, who does not have a godfather or followed any structure. The people are happy for it. We want a repeat in Edo State. The Edo people have to install somebody without a political godfather, without any form of structure introducing him, without any influence that will distract Nigerians after the elections. truth, and so shall it be all over the country. Come 2027, we must speak louder and we will act louder. Let's kill the politics of structure. Let's tell them to hell with their structures. Let's tell Wike that the capacity he is boasting of is that has been given, conferred by the people, and that if we take it back, he has no standing point. He has no locus to threaten the people, that no man born of a woman can do anything to him. To hell with the politics of structure, to hell with godfatherism, to hell with incompetent candidates, to hell with anointed candidates, to hell with this particular structure that has kept us hostage in our country. That even when we speak, they change the voices of the people. We must push for the right things to be done. And for those of them in government who it is their job, if they are not seeing the right things, we are making them see it. If they will not do the right things, we will force them to do the right things.